Hey, what's going on, everybody? You are tuning into another episode of 20 Tim Minutes. I am your host, Tim McCarthy. Today, I have on Toby Pasman. He's a psychology researcher who is learning how emotions relate to changes in the key brain networks. Toby has since worked in the substance abuse and mental health fields. Toby, welcome. But first, I already told you, I'm going to mispronounce a lot of these words. You're 10 times smarter than me. That's why this episode is going to be great, because I'm learning too. But what's going on, Toby? How the hell are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. So we were going over this, your company. How about we explain a little bit like what you do and what you went to college for? Because it's very interesting and everything has the word neuro in it, but there's the extra words. I'm like, what is this?
Yep. So neurophysiology researcher, I guess you could say, is my official title. And so in college, I started studying. Well, I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do in college. So I came in as a business major and realized that there was no way I was going to get through those hour and 50-minute lectures, for 4 years. So I started like exploring a little bit, and I ended up taking this biopsychology class that really blew my mind, where we were learning like how the brain actually works on a biological level, like the chemicals and electricity. And I realized that we could actually measure the electrical activity of the brain with the technology called an EEG, which is short for an electroencephalogram. If people have ever seen a swim cap looking thing with like a bunch of electrodes on it, that's basically the technology that I've been working with for several years, and realized that what's even cooler, more so than just being able to collect that EEG data, is that we're actually able to modify the EEG. You can actually change the electrical activity of a person's brain through neuromodulation. So that's kind of the field that I've since gotten into and become really fascinated by, is like how we can actually rewire the brain by changing the electrical rhythms.
Like change what exactly? Because I feel like you're in the process of becoming a supervillain with that type of technology. So like that's what I'm saying. I'm nervous already, but what does that translate into?
So we measure, say, if you were to come in and we're going to do an assessment, we're going to do a brain map. So a brain map is basically, you use an EEG, we collect the electrical data, and it'll show up as brain waves. So we're able to see which areas of your brain are producing either healthy quantities of a different brain wave. Are they overproducing? Are they underproducing a certain wave? And basically, so these brain waves, I guess to back up a little bit, the brain waves, so they're divvied up based on their frequency. So how often are they occurring? So you have the slowest of the brain waves being delta, and that's seen in really deep restorative sleep. You're just completely unconscious. You're producing lots of delta. Theta is a bit faster, kind of the bridge between the kind of conscious and subconscious mind. It's kind of a dreamy, sort of hypnagogic sort of state. Kind of deep meditative state. Then we have alpha, which is a bit faster, kind of an idling rhythm of the brain, really important for like deep focus, relaxation. And then beta is kind of the fastest of the brainwaves we usually talk about. That's pretty involved in just our normal kind of cognitive processing, thinking about things. You and I producing mostly beta, probably having this interaction right now. The listeners, paying attention to this conversation, probably producing mostly beta brainwaves. So basically what the brain map allows us to do, is to assess all of these different brainwaves, and then we can work with different technologies to modify either decrease or increase activity in one of the different brainwaves at specific areas of the brain, depending on what each person needs. The brain map kind of provides a roadmap.
Couple things is the beta of me paying attention. I was always nervous about having people come on that are a lot smarter than me, but when we vibed and had our little meeting beforehand, I was like, dude, you break it down so easily that like I can pay attention. I have ADHD, so I'm all over the map. Like I'm so glued into this that I absolutely love it, because the brain fascinates me so much. Because like how did you guys figure it out? Because back in the day they would just open up heads like, oh, there's a brain. Now you're talking about like delta, alpha. Beta. No, I don't think there's an alpha. But
There is, yeah.
being called a beta is kind of tough. So I was hoping to be called an alpha, but that's
Right,
what it is. So
right.
how was it with like the history of it all to from like that changing to get to like EEGs? Like what year did that start?
It was, I believe, it's funny. I had been saying like the 1930s, but then I was like, I needed to fact check myself because I kept saying it on all these podcasts. I was like, was it actually the 1930s? So I just looked this morning. It's 1929. That was the first EEG recording was done by this German psychologist Hans Berger. And
Sounds about
so
right.
we've known, yeah, so we've known that we know that the brain runs on electricity since then. It's like we commonly talk more in like the media, talks more about like the chemicals, right? Like dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, all the neurochemicals that go into, how the brain communicates with itself. But the electrical side of things is, I think, a little bit less appreciated. But yeah, I mean, it's been around since the 1929, and the technology's just gotten better and better. But yeah, it's a great way. It's a non-invasive way where we don't actually have to cut someone's head open, but we
Yeah.
just kind of wipe off your scalp with an alcohol wipe and a little bit of abrasive paste, and then put one of these swim caps on you, and we're able to record the electrical activity of the brain that basically emanates up to the scalp, and we're able to pick up those little signals. So yeah, it's a technology. It's been around for a minute.
They always say you got to break some eggs. How was it, you think, when they first started this? Like how many failures went into this?
Probably a lot. I mean, like, yeah, they probably had no clue what was going on.
Yeah, a lot of test dummies that were getting paid like 10 cents and they're like, "Yeah, we'll come in and help you." And then just they turned dead.
Well, I know they would experiment like on like frogs and like other like, animals and stuff, like recording like to see like that they have the electrical activity, like because they can kind of mess with those things in ways that we wouldn't be as cool with messing in humans
Right.
in those ways.
I picture a little shower cap on a frog now with like all the wires coming out.
Yeah.
Now, you must have used this for yourself. What were the pros of it, and is there any cons that come with this going into it? Like, what was your experience if you had this?
Actually doing a brain map like on
Yeah.
myself. Yeah, I've done multiple, more than I can count probably. But yeah, it's not. There's not really any con per se. It's not actually like a treatment in any way. It's not delivering anything to your brain. It's simply assessing what your brain is already doing. So I think is just really informative. Like it sort of helped me have a bit more clarity as far as like certain things. Like I've always had like kind of, I don't want to say like real memory problems, but just kind of like I would always score in like the highest like scores for like attention and focus, like, playing those brain training games. But my memory was always like not quite up to par. And that now is kind of reflected in some things that I saw on the brain map. And also like verbal fluency was something like I used to always struggle with like word finding, and I'd just be like having a conversation with someone and just being like so in my head just trying to figure out what the word was that I'm thinking of,
Yeah.
and just all over the place. So I found an area of the brain in my brain map that was producing kind of too slow of brain activity, and was actually able to speed that up with neurostimulation and really improved my verbal fluency. Like so much so that it was like I could like start the stimulation on myself and like be on a phone call with someone, and I'd be like, struggling trying to find words. And like by the end of it, I'm like playing a game on my computer, on my phone or whatever, not even paying attention to the conversation, just speaking completely fluently. So it was like, I don't know, the brain map to me is just like a great way to like see, it kind of tells you in a way who you are. I mean, in the sense like it helps you, I think, understand certain things of like why I am the way I am. And yeah, I think for anyone who's open to exploring that, it's definitely a good thing.
I'm
Now,
definitely I'm
I was
definitely
just gonna,
wanting to do that, but keep going.
yeah, I was just gonna say that like the only con I could think of, is like sometimes like people, especially at the substance abuse and mental health place that I was working at, like they've been messing with their brains
Yeah.
for a long period of time, so the dysregulation would be like pretty significant. So it could look really bad. So it's like that could scare people a little bit. The only con I could really think of, but it's like I'd always make sure to emphasize that it's like the brain has this capacity to change and rewire itself. So no matter how bad it looks today, that's not, that's just, it's just a pinpoint in time. It's like our brains are constantly changing with kind of the environment that we're in, our internal environment, what we take into our body with food and drugs and everything. So yeah, it's kind of I think a great tool.
Yeah, it sounds like I do the word thing too. I can't think of one. You're like, what is that? What is that? What is that? And you just drive yourself even crazier.
Yeah.
So I need that as well. Then what games are you playing on your phone? What's your go-to game on your phone? Yeah. What do you have any brain games or what?
There's a thing called Lumosity, like one of those brain training things I got into, but I don't know. Nowadays, like I'll just play Tetris. I love Tetris.
I
I'm
love
addicted.
Tetris. Old school Tetris, because you're a little bit younger
Yeah,
than me. I still have the
I
Nintendo
think so.
Tetris.
Oh man, I may have played that at some point. I had a Nintendo. Yeah, that was like my first console, a Nintendo 64.
Oh, see, I mean, I was like straight up regular Nintendo. I got Nintendo thumbs. I got like
Okay.
permanent arthritis, so maybe we can fix that too. Now, what does the brain map exactly look like? If you had to paint a picture for somebody that's like thinking about that, how would you
Yeah.
paint that?
So it would show up as like basically these different kind of heat maps, like these 2D sort of maps of the brain, and then it'll show sort of the dysregulation as with like lighter colors indicating underactivity. So, and the like say solid blue being the most significant underactivity, kind of lighter blue being a bit kind of more moderate to mild underactivity. And then on the flip side of things, you'd see the warmer colors indicating overactivity, with sort of yellow and orange being mild to moderate, and then red being very significant overactivity. So kind of you'd see these different heat maps, and it would be broken down by each frequency. So we'd assess delta, theta, alpha, and beta usually. And we're wanting to see, are you producing healthy quantities of those different brain waves in the correct location of the brain? So for instance, like alpha is one that it's usually generated mostly from the back of the head, from the back of the brain. So it's good to have a lot of alpha in the kind of the back of your brain. But if you have a lot of frontal alpha, that's often linked with like difficulty paying attention. Oftentimes, if you are kind of a chronic weed smoker, and that can produce kind of this like lung kind of frontal alpha where you're just a bit kind of hazy and inattentive. But
The devil's lettuce.
the devil's lettuce. It does. It's interesting. That's one of the most interesting things that I found in like because like they've researched like the EEG technology with all sorts of different drugs, right? Like the
Yeah.
effects that drugs have on the EEG. And one of the things that they found with weed is that it produces like, it's like for 3 days after, like you could get high, and then for 3 days after there's an increased frontal alpha power. So even like, yeah, it's like this lasting effect, maybe something to do with how it stays in your body or something. But
So you
I
have
just
people
found that
test
interesting.
drugs? You have people test drugs for this?
Test drugs,
Yeah, like if they
like
go in, like, are you like being like, hey, we're gonna smoke some weed today, or anything like that?
um, not in like a professional sense,
Right.
I guess.
All right. Pulling
But
people
I
off
mean,
the
they
street.
well, I mean, they've done that. That must have been how they did all these research studies where they assessed, yeah, the effects of all types of different drugs. But I'm
Yeah.
like what I'm super like excited to see going forward is like what they start finding like with different psychedelics, because those have been less studied like with the EEG, just because there's not like the funding from like big pharma and stuff. But yeah, it's like when people are having these like profound like changes and insights, and they're meeting God and stuff, like what is exactly
Yeah.
going on with the electrical activity of the brain. So
And
that's an area.
you're gonna
Yeah.
put that thing on their head and they're tripping balls.
Yeah. No, seriously, it'd be fascinating. Like, yeah, study that.
That's super funny. And I feel like this is a big question that everyone always asks and they hear it. I feel like it is like a lie. You only use 10% of your brain. Have you heard that before? And how accurate is that?
I have, and I never understand like the percentages or how they even like try to come up with those, because it's like I think like you're constantly like we're always using a like different parts of our brains in different situations and scenarios. Like for instance, like in order for me to have this like conversation with you, I'm tuning out, the light that I'm seeing, what's on my kitchen table, looking outside and seeing this. Like there's so much that I can perceive at one time. There's so much going on at all times. Our brain actually like filters out a lot of that stuff. So it's almost like the ability to like people want to like use like more and more of their brain, but it's like the brain actually does a really good job of like selectively like saying, all right, we're going to pay attention to this, and everything else we're going to just like filter out so we could actually like get things done. And so yeah, I think it's just like different parts of the brain are being activated based on kind of what we're trying to get done. If we're trying to sleep, there's certain brain areas that are going to be more active and certain electrical frequencies that are going to be more dominant than when we wake up. And so it's yeah. I don't think there's any validity though whenever they give some percentage of how much of the brain we use. It's not rooted in any like legitimate neuroscience.
And you got to think too, it's like if that was the case, people's percentages would be totally different. It's like the people that like juggle chainsaws and like do a bunch of stuff. It's like I can't pay attention to that many things, even though my mind's going like a mile a minute. I just think that's funny, and I felt like that was not accurate when I was asking. I was like, there's no way they would know that.
But the thing is, like you mentioned, like the juggling chainsaws. It's like, and it looks crazy to us, right? Like because we don't know how to do that, but because of the brain's like neuroplasticity, like those chainsaw jugglers, they probably had they were probably like us at one point before they started doing this, and it's like however they're training, I don't know, like gradually stepping up or whatever. I don't know how the training process works for that, but it's like it just speaks to like those people have probably been doing that for so long. It's become so like there's so much sort of neural resources that are being committed to that to that action, that activity, that they're just able to probably do it without too much thinking and be able to like wow people like you and I who haven't. But it's like a trainable skill, for anyone.
It's it is funny. It's like the brain map would be like, you're a chainsaw thrower. It's like, oh, okay, that's what it is. To move to the side of like mental health, like how does that incorporate with mental health? Like, say, are you not diagnosing, but like you see in certain things, like if someone came in with like bipolar or ADHD, could you tell that
hmm
by the brain map, and like would it be similar to a different person but with the same mental health issue?
Yeah. So addressing ADHD first, I would say there's a great marker that is being used. It actually, so most of the brain map is not like a diagnostic tool, but one marker that they actually found is so good at predicting whether someone has ADHD is something called the theta to beta ratio. So theta, we talked about being kind of one of those slower brain waves, really important for like deep relaxation, kind of meditative, sort of just a deep brainwave state. And then beta being that faster one that's really important for thinking and cognitive processing. So basically, the theta to beta ratio is looking at the balance between kind of the fast beta waves and the slower theta waves. And what they find is when there's a theta to beta ratio greater than 3 to 1, meaning someone has 3 times as much or more than 3 times as much theta brainwaves compared to their beta brainwaves, that's pretty predictive of ADHD.
Hmm.
So that's something that we are able to, look at with each brain map. And oftentimes also kind of, so we'll just see deficits in beta activity, especially in kind of the frontal part of the brain, especially the prefrontal cortex, which is really important for attention and being able to pay attention, focus on things for long periods of time and plan and all that sort of executive functioning that's somewhat compromised in ADHD. You talked about bipolar. That's actually a really interesting one because they've done studies with the brain maps like showing showing someone's brain in like a manic phase versus like a depressive phase. And it's like, it looks like two completely different brains. Like truly, it's like in one of them, the brain's all like lit up in the faster frequencies. And then, during the manic phase, and then the depressive phase, it's like there's the overproduction of the slower frequencies, and it's just looks completely different. So that's I think kind of a difficult one to study and assess, because like it's like there's so much change going on in that person's brain for whatever reason, just the swings.
Yeah, I have bipolar too, so you just scared the shit out of me that my brain turns differently.
I mean, the activity of the brain for sure is reflected like during the like a person's experience of those drastic mood swings is definitely validated by the electrical data that we're seeing. Like it really is different.
When you see that on the map, and what is the next step? It's like you rewire it to a point. It's like, what are you doing? Like you just connect in different lines? Like how does that work when you're helping somebody?
Yeah, so there's some different technologies that are kind of in our toolkit. So we have neurofeedback, which is basically where someone still has that same EEG cap on, but they're basically now playing like a game with their mind. So basically, what's happening is like, say you'd be watching like a movie, and as your brain produced more or less of whatever, so basically, say you have too little beta production, and we're wanting to increase the production of those fast beta brain waves. We might put you on a protocol, a neurofeedback protocol, where you would see the screen get larger, or if it's audio, you'd hear the tones get louder as your brain produced more beta brain waves. And then say you start daydreaming, that's usually when you start shifting into a slower kind of alpha state. Then you would lose that reward. So you'd see the screen get smaller or the tones get quieter. So hence the feedback part of that. It's like directly telling your brain like, okay, good job, you're doing well, or no, you need to sort of change and go back to what you were doing to be getting the reward. So that's neurofeedback. What I'm more excited about, because it kind of delivers more of a punch in a shorter period of time, it kind of delivers better, faster results with less time and effort, is neurostimulation. So this isn't what people might be thinking of when I say neurostimulation, like the electrical shocks and shocking
Yeah,
someone's brain, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or whatever.
yeah.
You know, this is like a much more low intensity electrical stimulation. Like it just feels like mild tingling. We'll put anywhere between like 2 to 6 electrodes along your scalp and stimulate certain brain waves that we're seeing are deficient in, based on, it's all based off what we're seeing in that brain map. So neurostimulation is a super cool technology that it's a little less utilized than neurofeedback right now, at least in like clinical application, but I think is like a much more powerful gun, if you will.
I like to ask a lot of questions because I was that kid in high school that would ask dumb questions. I always heard red brain and blue brain. Do you know what I'm talking about with that? Like
I
the right.
don't. I
Okay, I always
don't.
heard like the right side and left side was
Oh,
like right the right it was like right or left or something like that. See, these are why I ask these
yeah.
questions. So like
Well, there's definitely like people talk about like more right brain stuff or left
yeah,
brain stuff. Yeah, the right brain, yeah, is more involved in kind of creative, uh, kind of the left brain is sort of more logical, and the right brain is much more creative, I guess, is like a drastic oversimplification. Like both hemispheres of the brain are involved in tons of different activities, and oftentimes it's like the communication between both hemispheres that enables something to be done. But yeah, there does tend to be that, like, where like someone with more left brain tendencies is more like analytical. You could think of like a computer programmer maybe is activating more of their left brain, whereas a creative writer is more so kind of right brain dominant, you could say.
I feel like mine is just like a snake that comes back in and out. Then that would make
That's what you want, though, is to be able to like weave back in and out between the two. It's like there's actually the band of fibers that connects the two hemispheres of the brain called the corpus callosum. And that's actually, they found that the strength of that sort of strip is really tied to like a lot of aspects of how well our brains are performing. So it's like our ability to sort of get information in, back and forth between the two hemispheres. So that's actually a really good thing to be able to hop, because it's like, think about it, it's like some tasks, it's like require us to like be really organized and logical, and then other tasks we need to tap into our more creative side. So it's good to be able to access both kind of parts, both hemispheres of the brain.
Earlier, we were talking about like the health side of it. Is there like any brain food that would help your brain? Like
Yeah.
certain food? What would be something good for somebody that's like, you know what, I'm gonna try to be smarter here?
So the first thing is to remove a certain food, which is sugar, which is a favorite of mine. I've always had a sweet tooth, but sugar is absolutely terrible for every cell in the body, but particularly neurons, brain cells do not like excessive sugar, either in the short term or long run, causes problems.
Even
So,
natural sugar?
you mean like with like fruits and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, fructose. Yeah, I mean it's not as bad as like table sugar, but still, the much more preferable fuel source for the brain is ketones, which are basically the brain, the body burning fat for fuel. So there's been this like long kind of history of like us, kind of having like like the food pyramid, right? Where it's like, we're supposed to eat all these like whole grains and carbs
Right,
and
right.
bread and stuff. It's like, that's completely opposite of what you want to do for your brain health. Like, you want to eat plenty of good fats like avocados, coconut oil, butter, trying to think what else. Dark chocolate's great.
Oh,
So
hell yeah.
yeah, I mean, like, good tasty foods. I mean, bacon, like that's another one. Like, just getting good fats are essential. I mean, most of your brain actually is composed of fat. So like the myelin sheaths that insulate your neurons, are composed entirely of fat. So it actually requires, it's reliant on healthy fat from our diet to actually function optimally. So the whole like, like eat tons of carbs and like, oh, fat's terrible, like that's completely backwards. And
Really? Have you ever had
yeah,
bacon dipped in chocolate?
man, I don't know if I have.
Oh, that's the way to go.
That sounds amazing.
You can probably do it with dark chocolate, right?
Yeah.
That's
Is it like while is the chocolate like melted, or
No, it's
is it?
kind of, I think you create it and you let it sit out so it's a little hard on the
Ooh,
end there. So
yeah, yeah.
it's
No,
a money.
that's a brain healthy snack right there. Seriously.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I wanted to shift over to maybe like a little bit of CTE. Like obviously, I feel like you can see that. Is there any way to help somebody with CTE by any chance? Like somebody like a Chris Benoit or like an Aaron Hernandez, that if you saw that earlier, that you can hopefully maybe rewire it, or is just kind of
Hmm.
like shit? Like this is kind of a lost cause now.
No, I mean, it's the worse, the further something like a neurodegenerative thing. So like CTE being a neurodegenerative condition, caused by like repeated trauma to the head, is something like, it's definitely going to be, kind of the best opportunity to treat it is going to be in the early stages. Once it progresses to like, like full blown kind of dementia, and then that can be pretty darn hard to reverse. But
Right.
no, I mean, someone like Aaron Hernandez, I mean, that's someone who's young still, who obviously took tons of vicious blows to the head,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's like, that is definitely able to be helped, at least. So different like nutrients can play a big role, like certain antioxidants, making sure to like fish oil, using a lot of like fish oil. There's a supplement called N-acetylcysteine, like vitamin C. There's alpha lipoic acid. There's a study done by the Amen clinics, which is like a big psychiatric. They have a bunch of like psychiatric clinics, and the lead doctor there, Dr. Daniel Amen, has they did studies with some pro like former NFL players who were had some of these symptoms, and they found that utilizing like a supplement that contained all of those ingredients that I just mentioned, just a dietary supplement, that actually significantly, they showed significant improvements in their brain scans after, I think, like, I don't know if it was like 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, something, but a relatively short amount of time, there was a lot the brain could actually do to heal itself given the right inputs. And absolutely, neurofeedback, I think neurostimulation definitely also have a big role that they can play. I wouldn't ever call one of those like a, it's not like the panacea, or like the one, thing that's going to cure everything, but I think it's a great like tool in sort of a mental health or brain health toolkit. So like neurostimulation is great at improving blood flow and oxygen delivery to the brain, which is often compromised when someone's had a lot of head injuries. There's actually insufficient blood flow, insufficient oxygenation to the brain areas that were damaged. So that can actually help the brain actually start healing itself. And I think, like, yeah, that this technology could play a huge role, I think, in both like athletes who are still, competing, like boxers, NFL players, to like maybe recover quicker, or just not
Yeah.
have as much long-term damage. But then also, the ex NFL players, the ex athletes who are dealing with some of the symptoms of CTE. I think there's a lot of opportunities there.
So it's something like REM. Are you any well versed in that? Like I know a little bit about it. Like there's 4 stages, then you hit REM, and then like if you get woken up in that stage, that's when you're like super groggy. Like do you deal with that at all?
That's not my area of expertise. I mean, REM is definitely an important part of the sleep cycle, like rapid eye, what it stands for is like rapid eye movement, where your
Mhm.
eyes are kind of twitching back and forth during that stage. And there's a lot of regenerative, restorative things that happen in REM, but also deep sleep, probably being the, the, the ideal kind of component when it comes to, for the brain, when really a lot of the actions that take place that really kind of clear out kind of all the debris and damage accumulated throughout the day is really occurring in those deeper sleep stages.
I was gonna ask a couple of questions, so you might not know. Do we dream in color or black and white? Do you know?
That's a good question. I mean, I think, I don't know.
I know I've
um
heard like different theories and stuff that you when you dream that you don't see somebody's face unless you saw it like publicly. Like you don't generate faces in your own dreams. Like it comes from somebody that you
Interesting.
saw on the road or shit. Again, I'm just some
Yeah.
idiot, so I'm just like don't listen to
Yeah.
me.
No, I mean, that it makes sense. Well, because it makes sense. It's like, I mean, anything that it's like in our dream or our imagination, it had to have been like something that we saw in real life, right? I mean,
Yeah.
maybe people are producing unique things, but I feel like it has to at least be like a variation on something that they either saw in the real world or in a movie or TV.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I feel like everything. It's like there's nothing that's like truly like brand new. I don't know. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like it's dreaming's kind of fucking weird. You just go to sleep for eight
Crazy.
hours, wake up, you're like, oh, I had a dream, and you just go with your life that it wasn't weird at all.
Right.
Uh,
It's like we don't pay any, like, in our culture, it's like we like dismiss dreaming for the most part. Is like,
Yeah. Unless you have
it's
like
just
a
like,
deja vu like thing. And it's like I always thought too, it's like I was always like one of those like inventions that will like never happen. It's like you can like choose your own dreams and everyone was like, you know what, it'd be cool to like join dream with people. Like I feel like if we're working on EGGs, I feel like that could be the next step. Like it's the fucking Matrix or some shit.
yeah, you're not kidding.
Invent it. Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your company real quick, and I won't take up too much of your time. So Roscoe's Wetsuit Neuro. Let's start with what's the name about, and then what the company is about.
So Roscoe's Wetsuit, nothing to do with surfing. It's kind of an obscure reference to I don't know if you're familiar with the artist Childish Gambino.
Yep.
Yeah, so he had this album, Because the Internet, and there was this screenplay that went along with the album. And in the screenplay, there was like the main character comes across the words Roscoe's wetsuit, like it'd be like graffitied under a bridge, or you just like find it in random places. And the whole time he's like pondering, like, what the hell does this mean? At the end of the screenplay, he comes across this kid in a cafe who's like, scribbling it on a napkin, and he confronts the kid. He's like, finally, I'm going to get to know like what Roscoe's wetsuit is. And he asks the kid, and the kid's response is, I don't know, I just saw it online. So Roscoe's wetsuit actually means nothing, but it's also like a metaphor for like just kind of like, I feel like I don't know, what I got from the screenplay is like sort of a metaphor for like just our like our society of just like, kind of following trends and whatever's cool, and not really thinking for ourselves, which I hope to actually be able to inspire some original content and whatever with, I originally, that was the name of my podcast, which came first before the company. But yeah, I put that Roscoe's wetsuit. I thought it was just I don't know, a cool name, and that could be used for like, it could just be like the base, and then I could do Roscoe's wetsuit, Neuro, Roscoe's wetsuit. I hope maybe at one point to get into like the cannabis space. So Roscoe's wetsuit, cannabis,
Yeah.
just have a good like base title.
That's an absolute deep cut for a name. Like you went through so many different levels for that. I love it.
Right?
Childish Gambino is great. Donald Glover, right?
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Yeah,
He's
he really
brilliant.
is. I'm a huge Beastie Boys fan, and one of the DVDs that they have, he's in the crowd. Like they like filmed him, and at the time it was like probably like 2005. Like he wasn't established yet, so it's just funny to go
Really?
back and like they like predominantly like show him, and he's like just ripping it. I'll send you the clip of it because
Wow.
it is kind of
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, talk about a little bit about the company, and then a follow up too. Like, is this something that can be recommended by a doctor like professionally, or is it kind of just in that realm of like this is kind of like you got to go and try it yourself, like this is your decision?
Yeah, so we're definitely peak performance and wellness oriented. So even though a lot of these technologies are they've been commonly used mostly by psychiatrists and neurologists, but and I've worked under those sort of people in a clinical setting utilizing these technologies, but my passion, I think, lies more in sort of the peak performance and wellness space. So for people just looking to improve various aspects of their cognition, improve their focus, energy, mood, whatever it may be. Uh, so I am not, just a disclaimer, whatever. I'm not a licensed psychologist, so I can't. Even though a lot of these technologies that we've been talking about and that I use have a lot of research that say that they improve various different psychiatric or neurological conditions, I can't claim to actually be treating any
Right.
specific condition just because that's not my formal training.
Great disclaimer.
Um,
Great disclaimer right
yes.
now.
But what I do with the company, so there's coaching. We offer neurohealth coaching where we kind of help people implement, whether it be changes to nutrition, their diet, exercise. There's certain exercise regimens or forms of exercise that have been shown in studies to be really optimal for the brain. Going into like supplementation, sleep hygiene, all these sort of different things, helping people to kind of formulate kind of a plan, and be able to implement these sort of changes to their routine. So that's the coaching component. But the core of the business is offering, like, we start with doing brain maps as like the assessment. So we'll record brain maps, and then based on that, I'll devise a protocol, which will consist of either neurostimulation, neurofeedback. There's a couple other technologies called audio-visual entrainment or brain photobiomodulation, which are all mouthfuls to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically I've put together sort of in the same way that a trainer might put together like a workout regimen. It's like, all right, we're going to do this on Tuesdays, we're going to do this on Thursdays. I sort of do that, put together sort of a brain training protocol for people, and then we do reassessments to see how that protocol is actually changing their brain. So we'll do another brain map and then compare to the first one or the previous one and see, okay, like for one, is someone actually achieving the results that they're wanting to achieve? Are they improving whatever aspects of cognition they're looking to boost? And then does that also correlate with what we're seeing at the electrical data? Is it looking better? Is it looking more sort of regulated than previously?
Right.
So yeah, that's basically that tech or that's kind of the course of how we approach things. So people in the Miami and Fort Lauderdale area can actually order me, well, soon, I'll be starting this in November, but they can actually order me to their door or their place of business, and I will come and set you up with a brain map and do these different protocols. So
Like a brain escort.
pretty much, exactly. I mean, I was thinking more like massage or like the IV vitamins and stuff, but
Mine went to the gutter
hey,
instantly.
hey, I mean, yeah, that's another in-home service, right? So yeah. But yeah, so it's something that I'm hoping to be able to, like, expand this, where we'd have like neuro labs or neuro services, to just cover more and more of, like, more cities, more of the country, because I think the demand for this stuff is going to continue increasing. Like, you just look at like what's gone on with the whole COVID situation, like the massive upticks of like depression and anxiety, and people really realizing, like, gosh, like mental health really is important, and
Oh yeah.
some the stigma, hopefully slowly kind of reducing. So I think it's this kind of thing I see as sort of being more mainstream, even though people listening right now might be like, this guy is kind of wacky talking about all this crazy technology that I've never heard of. But I wouldn't be surprised within the next 5-10 years if this becomes, we start seeing like, you know, brain centers in the same way that you have, gyms. Like, people find it pretty normal to work their bodies out at the gym. So it's like, why not the brain too?
Exactly. It's like if weed shops are popping up now, it's like we got some EEG, some facilities that would go. And it's funny, there are like not the similar, but there are things that like can help you. Like I've seen like athletes like use like the light thing to like help them out where it comes up. Now there was one thing I tried, and I think you tried it too, was one of those like sleep chambers or like those floating like
Yeah.
those are ridiculous. I took one and I felt like I was tripping without drugs. I could see stuff, but I didn't.
It's crazy how it's like, so the sensory deprivation, where it's like, you think about that, like what you said earlier about, like, like how much like what percentage of the brain we use and stuff. And it's like, you think about all the things the brain constantly has to do. We're hearing, we're seeing, all of our senses are constantly being engaged while we're awake. So it's like, you go in this chamber and suddenly you lose, you don't see anything, you're not hearing anything, you don't smell anything, your body, like, you lose you forget that you even like have a body, right?
Yeah.
It's like the brain goes like, some crazy stuff happens when you take away all of those senses, all of those things that the brain's constantly attending to. And it's like the brain can go in some crazy sort of directions when there's not all of those senses.
My next question was going to be like, what's next for Roscoe's Wetsuit, but he pretty much already nailed it. That are you going to Florida? Yeah, you going to Florida
Indeed.
to be a brain
Miami bound.
escort. Is there anything else that you got on the horizon?
Just continuing with expanding the podcast that I do.
What's the
And
name?
hope
Say it again so
so
people can.
it's there's a Roscoe's Wetsuit Neuro podcast.
Easy enough.
So I already had the podcast. So when I did the company, I just had to nix the podcast off the end of it, and there you go. So, but I'm hoping to eventually be able to have like actual like live like studio audiences, like where I record, the podcast in front of people, and really take that to a whole nother level. Just interviewing the top like neuroscience and psychology and mindset thought leaders and all sorts of cool people. So I'm definitely passionate about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm not a judge a book by its cover type of guy, but I gotta think that when you meet people and you tell them what they do, they're like, yeah, okay, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely
Nothing
depending on
against you at all. You're a
who you're
beautiful
talking.
man, but I feel like I would be like,
Yeah.
yeah, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it's like it's a mixed response, but it's like, yeah, I mean, I think it's like once I sort of like I feel like there's like this divide, right, between like people who are like neuroscientists, right? Like who are like studying certain genes or specific proteins. There's such a divide between like if those people try to talk to like if they're at a cocktail party or you know whatever, and they're trying to like explain what they do. Like there's such a great divide, but it's like when I explain to people like, look, like with these brain maps, like you know you can see like you know as we explained earlier, like the warmer colors indicating overactivity, the lighter colors, and like I can it's enough like it's able to be translated enough to where people can be like, oh, like I can see how this has like practical applications in my own life. So it's like at that point they're kind of intrigued. But
That's why you're like a perfect guest because like I wouldn't say dumb it down, but you explain it so simple and like I don't want like those types of like eggheads or eggheads that we can say now is like when they just sprout off a different bunch of words and they act like the person knows what they're talking about. And you're like the way you came on and just described everything is like very learning, and I can hopefully explain it to somebody else. Like that's what it is when
yeah,
you do this interview. I absolutely love the brain. I think this whole thing was interesting. I'm very happy that you came on. I really do appreciate it.
absolutely. It was awesome to be on. And for guests, there's a special bonus discount code. People can receive 15% off their first neuro health coaching session if they go to Roscoe's Wetsuit neuro.com/20 Tim minutes. So yeah,
Fuck yeah.
you can go check out that landing page and you can receive your special code. And if you sign up for our free newsletter, you can get a bonus PDF that has 6 steps to better cognitive performance, 6 actionable steps you can take right now that'll help boost your cognitive performance.
I love it. It would be right underneath your screen right here. So that's perfect. They'll see it, hear it. It's love it.
Perfect.
Now let's end with this. I didn't give you a heads up on this. I usually give people a heads up so they're not stalling. But you said you're getting a little bit quicker on the words,
All right.
and I think I got the answer already because what we were talking about earlier. If like I'm a huge wrestling fan. If you were a boxer, MMA fighter, or a wrestler, and you came out, what song would be playing when you came out to the ring?
Lose yourself. And that's always been
Ooh,
like, yeah, man, that's like, I don't care when it is, what, like if I hear that, man, it's like it's go time. Like any early Eminem, like I grew up on Eminem, man.
yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah.
yeah,
That's a perfect one. Is that okay? I know what you're talking about. Yep, lose yourself in the. Yep. Okay, perfect. That was a
knees
big
weak,
Eminem.
palms
Yeah.
are sweaty.
Yep, Mom's spaghetti.
Mom spaghetti. There's vomit on his sweater already.
Absolutely
Yep.
love it. I remember his first album. I was in middle school and we all burned it, so it was like a fake. It's like
Yeah.
when burning CDs was a thing. I'm like, we're gonna go to jail. You got all scared as an eighth grader.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then now, I usually end with this. What are 3 things that you're grateful for now?
That I'm grateful for now, I would
Yeah.
say, hmm, 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 hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, definitely my friends, good friends. You know, like I think it's so rare in this world to find like people like who really have your back no matter what. You know, like those I call just average friend, like kind of a casual, like it's like a glorified acquaintance, right? Where it's
A
like
casual. Yep.
someone you can go partying with, but it's like when shit hits the fan, they're not going to be there for you. So I'm grateful for the solid, real friends that I have. Like that's to me, that's priceless. I'd say I'm grateful for. I'll do one with the brain. Grateful for neuroplasticity, which is obviously that like the brain's ability to change and rewire itself. It's that principle is what enables all the work that I do, and for it there wouldn't be any of this neurotechnology if the brain couldn't be changed, couldn't be healed. So grateful for that. And I'm grateful for this opportunity to come on your show today. I had a blast doing this.
Fuck yeah, dude. Toby, I really appreciate it. Be sure to check out Roscoe's Wetsuit Neuro. Toby, you are a phenomenal guest. Thank you for helping me learn. Now my big head has a little bit bigger of a brain, and I thank you for that. And Toby, I love you so much, man. You take care.
You as well. If you're ever in Miami, come visit the brain escort.
I'll be your handler. I'll be the guy in the car with the gun if shit gets crazy.
Right.
All right, Toby. You have a great one, man.
You as well. Take care.
This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. If you are feeling suicidal, please dial 911.